Siblings of Reddit, what's one story that you and your brother, sister, swore to take to your graves before your parents ever find out about? A few years back, I was about 17 and my sister was 19. She was dating this absolute piece of garbage and ended up falling pregnant to him. My parents never even knew because she miscarried quite early on. I only know because I caught her outside drinking bourbon when I couldn't sleep one night. She was crying and I asked her what was up. That's when she pulled out this little notebook filled with potential baby names. But as I read further into the book, baby names turned into poems and letters for this child. That's something I'll take to my grave. I'll never forget the look on her face when she told me. Thanks for sharing, I am sure that was hard for her. My folks went out of town and left me, then 13, and my older brother, then 17, at home. He and his friends thought it'd be amusing to start tossing around fireworks left over from New Year's Eve. I'm guessing the air was dry because shortly after they set them off, a patch of the backyard went up in flames. We all ran around throwing water on it before it could spread. Folks never brought up the discolored grass and neither did we. They knew. When I was 7, my brother and I decided in a whirlwind of adrenaline to shoplift from this tiny corner shop. I hesitated a little, but with some slight encouragement from Big Bro I pocketed some colorful gel pens. Those ones that smelled like fruit. The shop owner saw, walked over and told me she was going to call the police if I don't confess. I started crying and admitted the truth. But I didn't give up my brother. I was grounded for a month with no pocket money. My parents were so upset with me. It took a long time for me to feel forgiven. I never once let it slip that my brother was stealing too. We never talked about it. We never have in all these years. He split his pocket money with me in secret for that month. Jesus Christ, my sister would have never split her money for fairness. When I was 14 and my brother was 16, my parents went shopping and I was in charge of making sure my bro and his GF didn't do anything my parents wouldn't approve of. So obviously I told him he had about 20 minutes before they got back and I will be upstairs. About 15 minutes later I hear a car pull up the driveway, so I rush downstairs to tell him to wrap it up and I see his girlfriend on her knees, literally blowing on his dong. She thought a blowjob was just blowing cold air on a dong. And my brother was too young to know better. I made eye contact with my brother and told him that our parents were home and ran back upstairs. We haven't talked about it since and that was 7 years ago. You just know he told his friends and got ripped to shreds. I caught my sister having sex with her BF in her truck in a school parking lot. I swore not to say anything because she had a job as a fitness trainer and could beat the crap out of me. 15 years later, she married him and has 2 kids now, and we laugh about that moment, but still won't tell our parents. My mom had this set of 3 glass candle holders that she adored. My brother and I were playing soccer in the house while we were home alone. We couldn't play outside since no parents were home. We really were following the rules, and one of us kicked the ball directly into them, splitting one right down the middle. We rearranged them in a way that it wasn't obvious and set it up so that the one that broke didn't look broken, and one of us did the dusting every week so she wouldn't find out. The ruse lasted 8 years until we were both away for the weekend and mom dusted and thought that she broke it. We'll never tell. One of us did the dusting every week so she wouldn't find out. She knew but thought the trade-off was worth it. One time my sister snuck her boyfriend over. My parents came home early and they panicked, so he hid in my room until the next morning. I live in the attic, so lots of hiding places. I live in the attic. You're like the inverse Harry Potter. One time my sister accidentally spilled milk on our leather couch. My mom was always bugging her about spilling stuff, as my sister was a bit of a messy eater as a kid and my mom is a bit of a clean freak. I was babysitting that day and knew she'd be in crap if they found out. I dragged the wet dry shop vacuum from the garage and cleaned the entire thing, even parts that weren't dirty. I also vacuumed the carpet just as an excuse as to why the vacuum was even used. We've still never mentioned that to my mom. Can confirm. I'm the oldest sister and have definitely done extra vacuuming to help hide sibling messes. My brother used to rap. He saved money and bought the equipments required. My parents never agreed with him being a rapper. So he recorded his songs in his room while I kept a check on the door in case one of my parents was coming upstairs. It was a scary thing to do because both my parents are junkies and narcissists, so they would have been really mad if they knew. But eventually, he lost motivation and stopped. To this day, no one in my family knows that he used to rap. We still laugh remembering about it sometimes. That's really wholesome. Sorry about your parents though. My brother got arrested in a foreign country where he went on vacation. He was caught at the airport with a gram of coke. Dumb butt. My brother and I are about a year apart in age. When we were around 10 years old, we were hanging out with a friend at a school across the street from our house. This friend told us that if you coat a rock in enough mud you can throw it at a window and it won't break. He demonstrated and we watched as an entire window shattered. It's a small town, so my parents heard about the damage but never knew we were involved witnesses. Brilliant kid logic, haha. Once when we were both in high school, my brother got some weed from a friend and wanted to make special cookies. I made the dough but let him handle the actual specialization process since I assumed he knew what he was doing. Spoiler alert, he did not. An hour later we're sitting down after eating our cookies and nothing has happened. Nothing. I ask him how he did his part of making the cookies and this idiot looks at me and says he just crushed it up and put it in the dough, which of course led me to realize he was the biggest idiot in the world. And now fast forward a couple months later and he comes to me having actually bought real edibles. I have no idea how much I need to take, so he tells me that eating 2 or 3 should put me on a nice trip. I believe this idiot. An hour later and however many hours after that, cue the highest I've ever been in my entire life. I try to take a shower to calm down because I'm flipping crap, but I can't feel the temperature of the water no matter how hard I try to focus. It's 9 o'clock. My parents come home. We're both high off our asses and together we make nothing even close to a single sober person. In order to look casual we both sit on the couch and try to play Guitar Hero, but I can't actually feel my hands at this point so I'm not hitting any of the notes. The only thing that saved us was the fact that my parents were plastered and couldn't tell what was going on. But the next morning we promised to keep it our secret, and I told him that if he ever tried to give me more than one edible again, I'd make him eat all of them and watch him suffer. OMG, I feel stupid now. I always assumed that's how edibles were made. Me and my brother were convinced that we caused our mother's car accident because we were playing with a Ouija board at the same time she crashed. It was quite serious but she was okay, car was a write-off. We both believed it for years and never told anyone. As adults, although we are extremely close, we never speak about it, though I bet he thinks about it as much as I do. Me and my brother were fighting over who gets the last pizza roll. I pulled a cleaver out of the knife block and threw it at him. It got stuck in the wall. I was 5. He was 6. Parents never noticed the hole, and my brother and I never spoke of it again. I backed into Dad's pickup tailgate with the spare tire of my Jeep. It dented. I didn't want to get into trouble, so I never told anyone except my brother. Dad had just come home from a business trip and assumed some butthole backed into him at the airport parking garage. They still don't know I was the butthole. When Dad got all his teeth removed at once, he stayed overnight at grandma's, so me and my sister both snuck our boyfriends in and had them stay overnight. LMAO, I've done this too. Showered together and everything felt so adult too. My brother held up a store in the 90s, in a misguided attempt at being Robin Hood of the ghetto. Seems the store owner bumped prices for certain ethnicities, and since he was the only store open late, just got away with it. My brother went in and didn't actually steal anything, he just told the store owner to stop it. In the end, he sold the store and we got the current owner, who sold 2 pops for 1.00 and is still beloved by the neighborhood. In a misguided attempt at being Robin Hood of the ghetto. Discount Omar. Background: our house had been robbed twice before this story. The first time, we were on vacation and it made my mom really sad because she was basically exclusively targeted. They stole all of her valuables, including her jewelry and her collection of vintage Chanel. The second time, that house was on the market and we walked in on 2 men trying to steal our safe before my dad chased them down an alleyway. A few years later, I'm in 6th grade. My parents went to Argentina to celebrate their 20th anniversary and my 16-year-old brother and I were staying with our grandparents. My parents gave us strict orders to not go back home unless we needed something and then to lock up. Well, one night, my brother went to a Dallas Stars game and my grandfather decided he'd take me to watch football at his old high school. I needed to pick up my raincoat. I was trying to unlock our door when I see 6 large men at our dining room table through the window. I run and call 911. Our house was in a nice part of town so they brought 4 police cars. One of the officers is yelling to come out with your hands up or we'll break down the door. Cue my brother and his 5 friends. Terrified. Walking out. One of them had pee themselves. Turns out they had been smoking pot at our place and he gave me that story so we wouldn't know what's up. My brother was furious and told me I should have checked before, which confuses me because what do I say? Hey, are you robbing my house or are you just my butt of a brother? My grandfather was super cool about it and was like, yeah, I won't tell your mom. This'll be our little secret. My parents still have no idea. LOL, you did the right thing by calling the police then. It's better to be safe than sorry, so even if your brother is mad, don't feel bad about it. My grandma and grandpa had a fully finished apartment in her basement, which my dad, sister, and I lived in during my dad's divorce. Dad had the bedroom. My sister and I shared the living room. We were teenagers, 14 and 15. We were both in serious relationships, as serious as they get as a teenager, lol. We knew dad went out every Wednesday bowling, so we planned to lose our virginities to our boyfriends on the same day, while dad was out, so we could each have our privacy. Neither our dad, nor our grandparents know, and it's been 12 years. This sounds like you were dating your sister. My oldest brother passed away unexpectedly in another state. My elderly mother was unable to handle his affairs, so my other brother and I went up to settle as much as we could. Turns out that he was a hoarder. Like, garbage bag after garbage bag piled on top of another that was squished down because he was walking over them. The front door could only open about 6 inches because of the piles. The refrigerator was duct taped close. God know what horror was in there. Both toilets were broken and unusable, so my brother had been using a 5-gallon bucket inside. He and I had Skyped periodically, and he had a little stage set up in the middle of the trash. There was no way I could tell. My brother and I arranged to have a special cleaner come in and clear everything out. To this day, our mother doesn't know. I don't think she even knows what hoarding is. Whoa, condolences. What a terrible thing to walk into after you lost your brother. This will seem more political than intended. It's not a debate about gun control. My lovely parents are on somewhat opposite sides of the spectrum in all arenas of politics and parenting. So long story short, my oldest brother shot my other brother in the foot accidentally. I don't know why I was shown this. I was probably around 8 at the time. I knew enough to know it was grotesque. I knew when he said don't tell mom, that meant never tell mom or anyone, ever. There was a cavernous, puffy hole in between his metatarsal foot bones, inflamed and very pustulous. It was clearly infected. My ATOMD skills weren't quite top notch, and I was just like nope, can never tell mom or anyone. Now I would snitch in a heartbeat if someone's safety is at risk. When my sister and I were around 13-15, we had a mostly full bottle of tequila that our parents confiscated. It sat in their bedroom closet for a few months until one night they had friends over and decided to make margaritas with it. I started to panic, because I had been taking and significantly watering it down multiple times since they took it. They hadn't shown any interest in drinking it until that night, so I figured they'd never know. I told my sister about it and she said that she had been doing the same thing. Luckily for us, our parents and their friends, who aside from the margaritas had only been drinking a few Bud Lights or so, all got stupid placebo drunk. They had no idea. My late husband and I got a DNA test and found out there was no Native American in his genetics. I'll never tell his parents. Brother accidentally bought a month's subscription for Hulu on my dad's credit card and forgot to cancel it for over a year, and at that point we had no idea we still had it, but dad never found out. There was a time that my mom came home while we were waiting for some LSD to kick in. I, like the big brother I am, Made him stay and converse with her while tripping for the first time in his life. I left and got food, came back and she was gone. He was only mildly upset, but apparently he held his crap pretty well. We just laugh about it now. Not the same, but I was sworn to secrecy about this and had to admit it. My brother once karate chopped me across the bridge of my nose when we were 6 and he was 9. I was sworn to secrecy and was crying the entire time. Gave me 2 black eyes. Well, this was during the height of the Central Jersey Children's Cancer Cluster. Apparently in the early 80s, a local company poured a bunch of super cancerous fluids into the water around that area, and a bunch of children got cancer. So my parents thought I had brain cancer or something due to the 2 black eyes. I gave up my brother while we were in the hospital and I was screaming about having to be put in the MRI machine because I thought it was going to eat me. MRI researcher here, you're right, they do eat you. Glad you got out. Brother took the family car for a joyride one night when he was around 14. I was supposed to be watching him, but, being 21, was having a party of my own. Luckily there were no problems that arose. My little brother dislocated his shoulder pretty badly as a teenager. Once you dislocate your shoulder once, you can be prone to it happening again. He ended up dislocating it maybe 6 times over the course of 2 years, and had to have major reconstructive surgery because of it. The original dislocation did not happen playing basketball on a Saturday morning, as my parents believe. It happened Friday night, when he fell running from the cops after his friends were caught drinking behind the school. I picked him up, helped him pop it back in, and came up with the cover story. Or there was the summer he came home from a camping trip with his very swollen calf and gauze and dressings. Told my parents he fell while hiking and got a huge gash on a rock. Really, the dumbass drunkenly thought it would be funny to light his leg on fire and accidentally gave himself 2nd-degree burns. He didn't feel much pain what with being hammered and all, so he chose to finish his 3-day camping trip without seeking medical care, which resulted in it becoming incredibly infected. I spent the rest of the summer helping change his dressings. He did a lot of dumb crap drunk. My brother dislocated her when I was about 7, and my brother was 10 or 11. I was visiting my dad. My brother lived with him, and we were out doing young brother stuff, mostly fighting or exploring. Well, for some reason we decided to have a rock war. Yup, you read that right. We started throwing gravel like rocks at each other, probably 30-40 feet away. Well, I was getting crushed, and little pebbles kept nailing me and I wasn't hitting him at all. So of course when I find the bigger stone, probably 3-4x the size of a gravel stone, I pick it up and think there's no way I'll hit him, but maybe he'll dodge it and open himself up. Totally clocked him in the head with it, and he was bleeding a fair bit. We get home, and dad asks what happened. I tripped in the gravel driveway, he said. We've never spoken about it since. I was 12, he was 14. Our parents went to a weekend getaway. Our aunt stayed at our house to look after us. Can't remember why she was not there at the time, so we took my mom's car and went on a joyride to the arcade. He crashed trying to park and we bailed out. Till this day they think it was my aunt. My mom and her husband were out of town, and my sister's boyfriend spent the night in her room. I didn't know he was there, so I walked in on them making out. Never spoke of it again. After my dad got laid off from Bell, my sister and I started secretly slipping money into his wallet. We were in our early teens. It probably didn't make much difference, but in our minds we were helping. I'm the youngest of 5. My siblings were 10 to 17 when I was born. They never told me that they all saw my dad get the crap beat out of him before I was born by my mom's cousin's husband for adultery accusations. I never would have known if my elderly mother didn't confide in my first wife and ask her to never tell me, which he did. My brother smokes weed and does acid, and he offered me acid one time. Also he did the ego D thing and he made me promise not to tell. That broken phone of mine that mom used her upgrade on to get me a replacement, yeah, I didn't drop it on the patio, I threw it at my sister's head during an argument, and it bounced off the wall behind her. My secret closet mice. I rescued a couple of $99 feeder mice from the pet store and decided to keep them in my closet, in an old hamster cage, even though I wasn't allowed to have any more pets. Well, the cage bars were apparently not narrow enough to contain said mice, so they escaped. I had to tell my brother and sway him to secrecy to help me look for them. I found one of them within a day, but the second one was on the loose in the house for almost 2 weeks before my brother found it in his closet. We set it free in the green belt behind our house and our parents never found out. I had to give him my allotted GameCube time after school for 2 weeks to get him to help. It was torture watching him get farther in my game than I'd been every day, but it was worth it in the long run. Me and my brother would go into the backyard and take a pee. This happened every day until the neighbor saw. Yard pee is best pee. He smokes weed, which is illegal in my country, but whatever, right? It's not like he's already been arrested before for stealing a phone. The double down on tattling. How I broke my leg at age 11. Both parents are dead now, so I can't tell the whole internet. I told mom that I tripped over a hose spigot when I was running. That was not true. Twin bro and I had made a swing out of a jump rope and a stick, and were launching ourselves from the top of a fence. After a few good swings, I took another turn. The rope broke, as we should have expected, but didn't because we were kids. I slammed into the ground, and broke both my tibia and a growth plate. Alright, so this one is actually about my kids. I had to run into work for an hour or so last summer, so I left my oldest in charge. Get home. House isn't burned down. No one is heavily bleeding, so we're good. However, oldest tells me her phone fell off the arm of the couch and the screen is cracked. Middle kid confirms story. Youngest has run off and isn't paying attention. She needed a new phone anyway. It was an accident, so we go online and order her a newer iPhone. She's super excited. A few weeks later we are talking about the phone and it falling off the couch. Youngest, 7. It's eating at the kitchen table near us and says that's not how her phone broke. He proceeds to explain that she was too lazy to go down the stairs to get it, so she threw a rope down from our catwalk and had her siblings tie it around the phone. Shockingly, the phone fell out of the rope halfway up. We asked 7-year-old why he didn't tell us initially. His answer, "You didn't ask me." Fair enough, dude. I'm pretty sure my girls were going to take this to their grave. Needless to say, oldest didn't get her new phone. She got my old one, which had a broken camera and power button. I sat here thinking about it for a while until I realized that my parents probably already know everything about me and my siblings. Like, it's small stuff that we just don't say though, but we are pretty open with our parents. Of course we kept secrets from them when we were teenagers, but now when we are all adults they know those things too. My family rented a minivan when we were at an out-of-state wedding and it was parked under the hotel in a parking garage during the reception. My brother and I were about 13-14 years old and thought it would be a good idea to take the minivan out for a spin while all of the adults were drunk, so we find the keys in the room and I get in the driver's seat. This is a typical parking garage with large cement pillars every other parking space, but of course, I didn't notice this. I put it in reverse and crank the wheel and hear the sound of the front bumper nearly being ripped off. My heart sinks into my stomach as my brother and I jump out to look at the damage, which wasn't as bad as we thought it would be, but it was definitely noticeable. We put the keys back in the room and went back to the wedding like nothing happened, and by some miracle, no one walked in front of the car until we returned it to the rental place the next day. I watched the Enterprise lady look at the bumper and I nearly had a panic attack, but she just raised her eyebrows and ticked a box on her clipboard. My mom got a huge bill in the mail for the repair, so she called and insisted that one of their people just have crashed it after we returned it and she didn't have to pay it. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.